Hello and welcome to another video on my channel, Calmly Explaining Veganism. Today's video I want to talk about different forms of activism, different forms of getting the word out about veganism, and pretty much just have a little conversation about which ones I think are maybe better or worse, or whether there is a better or worse way of talking about veganism, and just to kind of touch base on those sort of things. So I guess my first thing I want to start with is just by saying that different people have different opinions, but it's my opinion that pretty much any form of activism and advocacy for the animals and for veganism is a good form of activism. There are ways that I feel are slightly more effective to the general population or slightly less effective to the general population, but the way I see it is that if you have many people focusing on veganism in many different ways, some very strongly, some very passively, you've got a much better chance of reaching everyone. There are some people that respond really well to gentle guidance, talking about veganism. Some people that won't even bat an eyelid at that, they won't change anything at all. But then maybe those same people, if you really demonstrate very fiercely why you think that veganism is the correct way to spend your life, and a really beneficial way to spend your life, then those same people who didn't really care about your gentle sort of hints might actually become really responsive, even if at first they become very maybe aggressive or kind of sheltered. And so that's kind of my general thoughts, that people respond differently to different sort of stimulation, and so pretty much every form of advocacy for veganism I feel is a good form. I guess obviously judging by my channel, the way I like to advocate is by being calm and talking about it and explaining it and trying to be really logical, and trying to get people to think for themselves. If someone gets all upset at some big sort of thing, say for example Cecil the lion, and says, "This is horrible, I can't stand to be a part of this," maybe for a day or two they'll have that sort of belief and go vegan for a day or two. That's great, but then after that maybe they didn't actually think for themselves in the first place. They just kind of followed their friends, and then slowly but surely maybe they'll go back to just living the life the same way as they did before, because they didn't really think about it. They didn't really internalize what it means to be vegan and all the benefits. So my way that I like to go about it is by getting people to think about it and make decisions for themselves. And my belief is that if you think about it, pretty much every single aspect of veganism makes more sense than being non-vegan. That being said, part of the reason I do that is because that's what works for me as a person. I'm not very good at advocating super strongly, yelling at people, pressuring people into going vegan. I'm much better at talking. You can judge that for yourself by watching my videos, but I think I'm much better at talking. If on the other hand I was a different person that found it much harder to chat with people, but I found it much easier to just call people names, I don't know, something like that, point out all the flaws, be really in their face. If I found that much easier than I did just chatting to people, perhaps that would be a better form of advocacy for me. So it's really just kind of matching what you feel comfortable with, what really appeals to you, and using that to spread the message of veganism, whether it's very strong, whether it's very subtle. Just to talk about a few different forms of activism, there are so many different ways that people are doing it. There's majority of people who don't really even advocate for the animals that much except through their actions. They just live the vegan life, they avoid any animal products, and they're demonstrating very passively just by showing example. I feel that's quite a good way for many people that don't have the strength yet to really stand up strongly for the animals. But just by showing people I'm healthy, I've been vegan for a while now, I'm not dead yet, that's kind of a good way for people to be like, oh, I guess veganism's becoming more mainstream, there's more people doing it, and hey, they're still healthy and alive, it can't be that bad for you. So that's one way of doing it. There's other people who go and do it more directly, so things like what I'm doing, making videos about it. There's lots of people that do that. There's people that make videos but make quite I don't want to use the word aggressive, but more kind of in-your-face videos. These are people like, for example, one of the best ones of causing conversations is probably Freely the Banana Girl. She's very good at, and her partner as well, June Ryder, Harley. They're both very good at causing conversations, at getting people maybe at first upset, but really being controversial enough that people start talking about them and talking about veganism. There are other people who put it very directly and kind of really very good speakers. You've got people like Gary Yourofsky, and he goes around and gives a lot of talks. I don't think he does anymore, but he did go around and give a lot of talks in person, and then his videos are now on YouTube. Those, some people find are quite direct, and he's very decided on many of his viewpoints, so he doesn't like to associate with people that go half-heartedly. He wants people to completely commit to veganism and not to kind of use it and then sometimes also maybe take money from people that still exploit animals or things like this. He doesn't like I might be wrong, but it seems like he doesn't like organisations so much that kind of do it half-heartedly. Let's save the animals, here, have a sausage from my barbecue that's made from animals, things like that. You got other people who are abolitionists. They don't believe in half-heartedness. They say vegetarianism is horrible, awful. You got to be 100%. There's no kind of, well, maybe a little bit is fine. They just kind of say, go vegan, it's the only way, you've got to do it now. So that's some people as well. There are others that are a little more lenient. They say, go vegan if you can, do as much as you can, anything is a good thing, try meatless Mondays. There's all these different levels. There's others people that have, like the Gentle Barn I was watching a video on the other day. They're places where they decide the best way of advocating for the animals is by having lots of animals for the public to interact with, and by teaching them about animals and veganism through their farms and through the animals themselves. There are people that go into slaughterhouses and rescue animals and then take those animals out of there, and that's another way that people do it. There are just so many different ways. There's others that go undercover and get some footage of what's happening in the industries. There are some that don't go undercover but also go into the industries and get footage to show the world. There are just so many different ways that people advocate for veganism. There are others that make food. That's, I feel, one of the most important things about the vegan movement is those people that give alternatives. So that when you say go vegan, you're not saying give up your food, you're just saying buy a different brand, one that happens to also be vegan. But we've got so many good quality foods from the supermarket and also food chains now. They're really, I feel, really important for the vegan movement, and that's a really good way of advocating for the animals. What I kind of want to do is just point out that there's so many different ways of doing it. I feel that one of the best things is just kind of see what resonates most with you as a person, which way you can deliver, which way you believe in and trust. And my only thing I really have to say about it is that in nearly all cases, really, I think it's good. Please do try to make the fact that veganism is the ultimate goal really clear. Even if you're saying try meatless Mondays, just give it a go 1 day a week. It still is important, I feel, to, at the end of the day, make it clear that try meatless Monday, give it a go 1 day of the week, and then eventually get to veganism. And that's, I think, what a lot of people have criticisms of, all this confusions that's going on with the vegan movement. Some people saying do it 100%, some people saying vegetarian is okay, just do that if that's all you can do. And I feel by making it really clear that the ultimate goal is to go vegan. Sure, there's a transition path along the way, but at the end of the day, where everyone wants to be is having no animals being used or abused, or going through what they're going through. The environment isn't going to get as good as it can if everyone just goes meatless Mondays. Sure, 1/7 reduction is going to do a really big deal, but it's not going to do anywhere near as much as, in fact, it will do 7 times less than the whole week being vegan, and not eating meat and not drinking dairy or eating dairy, all this kind of stuff. So that's kind of, I think, mostly what I want to say is just that there's so many different types of ways for advocating for the animals and for the environment and for health. That's the other thing I mentioned. Some people just kind of focus really on the health side of veganism and don't even use the word vegan. Some people say plant-based because they think it might be a good way of getting to more people. Perhaps there are people that just switch off completely when you say the word vegan, but are more willing to listen when you use words like alternative, words like meat-free, words like plant-based. Some people might do that, so it's good that there are people using that language and using those words. But really, I feel that at the end of the day, you've got to advocate the way that you feel, and the more people that are advocating, the better. Really, if everyone that was vegan advocated in a reasonably strong way that they felt was true to themselves, then there'd be so many people advocating for veganism. The rest of the world would find it very difficult to shut it down. At the same time, as I said, many people can't advocate for animals strongly, so just by showing that you're here, you're a living vegan, it is possible, you're still alive, that is still a good way to advocate for the animals if you can. But, every way is a good way. Make it really clear that veganism is the ultimate goal, and do as much as you can, really, or even more than you think you can. Push the comfort zone, do a little bit more, and hopefully before too long we'll start seeing, there already is a change, but start seeing a true change and a lot more things coming to fruition in terms of veganism and the movement. That's enough for today, but thank you for watching. As always, I do appreciate those people that watch these videos. Hopefully I've said something that means something to you, and click subscribe if you want to get these videos, get notifications when they come out, and support me, and yeah, go live vegan. Thank you, bye bye.